Episode 62, Book Reviews with the Daniels. Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I've got with me an old friend, another Daniel. I don't know if you can handle it, but we got two Daniels on the episode today, and we're going to be talking about our favorite new recent reads, or rather listens, because we are addicted to audiobooks, and we have a problem.
It's the only way to live.
Daniel, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? Where are you? What do you do? And why the heck are you here?
Well, I'm in Oklahoma, in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Oklahoma City. Just kidding. And I'm a systems analyst out at Life Church, and I've been there since August this year. Great organization to work for. Been loving it. We lived in Austin together, you and I. That's why I'm here. And
we did. Interesting days those were.
Yeah, not and let's say not together, but we went to the same school, and that's how we met. But we recently reconnected over the topic of audiobooks and our mutual love for them, and it's been great reconnecting, and I'm excited to talk with you a little bit today.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. So, audiobooks. How do you get your audiobooks? Tell us what your sources are and what works best for you.
Yeah. So I go through my library primarily, sometimes through Overdrive or Libby, but primarily through Hoopla. Generally has the best selection, and then they never have holds or waits, which is I find is Libby might have one or two copies of an audiobook that are constantly on hold, but Hoopla's doesn't have that problem at all. So really enjoy Hoopla. Occasionally,
awesome.
LibriVox has the classics. They have the ones that are out of copyright, public domain. So you have a lot of volunteers going through and taking time to create audiobooks, everything from your Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to your H.G. Wells and everyone in between,
Nice.
C.S. Lewis, and a lot of really, really good stuff on there.
That's cool. So if you want to really catch up on the classics that have made sci-fi today what it is, or fantasy what it is today, go on LibriVox. That sounds like a good place to find those.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other sources you go to?
One that I've been considering. I haven't taken the plunge yet. I am currently a completely free audiobooker, but scribed.com has piqued my interest. It is an $8.99 subscription that gives you unlimited audiobooks, unlike Audible or.
That's dangerous.
It is. It means you'll never stop ever. You'll be sucked into a black hole.
Goodbye, world.
Yeah.
Ultimate escapism.
I can just imagine it now. So that one, should it present an audiobook that I can't find in the library, I'll definitely start my 30-day free trial. But then I'll end up going for that $8.99 subscription because it's just too affordable to even worry about it.
Man, we should do the 30-day trial together and offer them to pay us to do a review episode. That'd be great.
That would be perfect.
Very cool. Well, I'll need to check that out too. It's good to have these multiple outlets because, like you said, the official ones that really are most connected to the libraries, as great as that is, there's more rules and there's the waits and the loans and the holds and stuff like that.
Yep.
And they expire. I mean, I think you can only get the book for 3 weeks on most of the apps on Overdrive and Libby. Is it 3 weeks?
I believe it is 3 weeks. And the official rental, quote unquote, on Hoopla is the same way, where it's a 21-day thing. But if it goes over, you can just get it again. So it's not.
But I have to wait.
Yeah.
The other ones you'll have to wait to get it again.
Yeah, because there's 18 people in line waiting for your book.
Like Mistborn. Oh my gosh. I read it and then it expired halfway through. I'm like, no, I'm never going to finish it in time for the episode.
That's tragic.
Yeah, it was super sad. We're trying to do a book review episode on it. And Nate is, a little bit slower listener than me because I listen to it all the time. And then it expired. I'm like, crap. All hope is lost. We're never going to get to it. And I tried to loan it again, and somehow I got it within a month. I got it back, which is a miracle.
It's unheard of.
It may have been, I think I switched apps, and somehow that it worked in my favor. But yeah, the expiration is annoying.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you're reading Brandon Sanderson, and he writes books that takes 25 hours to listen to.
How am I supposed to finish this in a week? We just need to have a talk with Brandon Sanderson and tell him to write shorter books.
Come on.
I think that's the solution here.
We need a Brandon Sanderson light subscription.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, what are
He
they?
trims down his books.
Do they call that abridged? Is that an abridged book?
Is that a pun? Is that a pun for the Way of Kings?
I don't know.
Reference.
I don't know.
There's bridges.
We'll just roll with that.
All right. So I also use Overdrive and Libby. Something I've learned is that Libby replaced Overdrive in the app stores, but the reason why, the main reason I've found is that Libby has DRM encrypted the audio of the books. Overdrive has not.
Aye.
So they're pure MP3s.
Beautiful.
So I'm kind of going back to Overdrive, especially with any book that's longer than like 15 hours. I'm getting it from Overdrive right now because if it's about to expire, I can move the folder and retain those MP3s for my own listening pleasure, and the app can't delete them. So that's one backup plan. Haven't had to use it yet, but there's that. But I should probably just get on Hoopla and use that more often because it's quicker. Okay, so why do you listen to audiobooks? What's your thing with them? I know I've got my own reasons why I just love books and audiobooks specifically, but tell us your story. What's your deal with them?
So I want to escape all reality and just really no,
seems totally healthy.
It's not true at all. For me, it's my relaxation. Some people that are really weird go running. I like to listen to audiobooks. It's just it's where I get that escape, I get that stress relief. It's just a little bit of time to myself. I've got a 2-year-old, so I need some time to myself. I know you can relate
to think like an adult.
Yeah,
to think about adult and mature things. Sometimes
it's a struggle. So that's mainly why I listen. It's so enjoyable, and I'm pretty sure I'm also addicted to the dopamine kick that you get from listening to things that you like. Pretty sure that's real.
The big reveal. It's great. It's so great. At the end of Mistborn, oh boy, that was great.
I still need to listen to it, so no spoilers.
Oh, that would ruin my future episode. Awesome. Well, for me, I love a good story, and for me specifically, sci-fi and fantasy has that extra, zest, if you will, of a story that just really keeps my interest more, and it stimulates my brain. I'm an intellectual, as I strongly believe you are as well, and I just need that stimulation. I need that what if, that wow, I never thought of that, or that oh, this could happen. Or maybe, oh, this could never happen. I love that effect in my imagination. It just really gets me going. And for anyone that has taken the time to read any of my dream posts, which is #DanielDreams, I've got a pretty vivid imagination.
It's the best part of my day.
Are you one of my fans? One of my followers?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I love a good story. And it kind of started a few years ago. I got into this project with 4 other friends who are interested in sci-fi and authoring. And we said, hey guys, let's write a book. Let's write a book together as a group. And we pieced it all together, and it was a really awesome project. Sadly, it's come to a halt because one of the guys has not done his chapter.
Oh.
Awesome idea, but very fickle because you're relying on everyone having free time to write a chapter. All that to say, it kind of led me to this point where I was like, you know what? I don't know what's normal for a sci-fi book. I love sci-fi. I grew up with it in different forms. I never read it really. Except for here and there throughout high school and a little bit in college. But yeah, I just didn't know what was normal in the literary world. What is a good story? First person, second person, third person, different narrators, stuff like that, like the technical stuff. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start listening to the classics, like some of the more recent classics, like 2001 Space Odyssey. A lot of Isaac Asimov, a lot of Arthur C. Clarke, and some of those other big names. And that just kind of got the ball rolling, and it just went on. And I never really finished. I was like, okay, I'm done with my homework and I'm ready to write. I was just like, I love these stories. I love these types of stories. And yeah, so it went from there.
That's fantastic.
It kind of started as homework, and now it's like a healthy addiction and a little bit of escapism to keep my brain turned on while I drive countless hours for work. So
that's awesome.
That's my thing.
I was unaware that you had a book project going. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I still want to see it finished because it's a time travel story, and it's got some really great, unique points to it that I would love to see come to fruition. So anyway, let's get back to the episode. Enough about me. As to where I listen and when I do a lot of driving for my day job. I fix ATMs, and I got to drive around town, sometimes out of town, sometimes across many, many towns. And it's great for reading and podcasts because I get to listen to a bunch. And it's sort of fueled by the fact that I hated reading growing up. I just
Mm-hmm.
loathed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible, and I wish I could go back in time and change that. But then everything would be ruined in the current continuity, and it would be bad. But the whole space time continuum would collapse on me.
You would not be who you are today.
Yeah, more on time travel later. Dun dun dun. So I listen while I drive, and I also listen just during like chores at home or driving to and from the grocery store. When no one's with me, I listen.
Mm-hmm.
Wife sends me to go to get diapers. That's 10 minutes to the store, 10 minutes back. That's 20 minutes. Listening at 2x, that's 40 minutes of a book listen to right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I zoom through a book, sometimes one a week, usually one every 2, or sometimes a 3-week long stretch for one book. And it just depends on my work and how long I'm driving and stuff. So,
and if it's a Brandon Sanderson book or not.
yeah, then it's stretched across a few months.
Yeah, and for me, my listens is like yours: before bed, on the way to work, during breaks at work, on the way home, everything there and in between, every kind of chore or run to the store. I mean, you name it. Every
just kind of squeeze it in.
Every nook and cranny is filled with audiobooks, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I feel like some people might kind of see that as weird. They're like, wow, that you're listening to audiobooks all the time. Like, why don't you do anything else? And I'm thinking, well, what do you do during these same moments? Like, let's say if you were me, what would you be doing? Just be listening to the radio. What does the radio play? The same 40 songs.
Yeah, the same 40 terrible songs.
It's just, you'd be listening to dumb, mindless radio. Why not listen to something that's going to like enrich you, at least just stimulate your imagination?
Yeah.
But there's other stuff, you could be listening to like a great book that will really literally help you spiritually or professionally. There's lots of books out there. So this is not just all nerdy books.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's a good use of that downtime, and it's actually not downtime because my brain is rolling.
Oh, absolutely. I find that audiobooks are significantly more productive.
I can't listen to a book if I'm doing computer work. How my day job works is I'll drive, I'll get to an ATM, I'll fix it, and I can sometimes listen to an audiobook while I'm fixing a machine. Like I can still process and enjoy it, but once I have downtime and I go to Starbucks and sit down to like edit any of my photography work or do some business work, that's my brain is used up too much and I can't quite process the audiobook anymore, so I have to stop it.
Yep.
That's just me. Like if I'm doing too much, then I can't enjoy the book.
I can multitask a little bit, but once there's like a heavy task that's using the, that main portion of my attention, I'll realize that the audiobook is still talking like 20 minutes later. And I'll just pause it at that point.
What just happened? Yeah. Rewind.
It's like, who just died?
Exactly. Thank you for listening to this audio recording. Oh, shoot, it's over. Awesome. All right, so let's get into recent books we've read, listened to. We're going to use listen to and read interchangeably, okay? So just get over it.
Yeah.
So Daniel, tell us about some books that you have listened to recently and what you love about them.
Yeah. So I'm always on the lookout for a good binge-worthy series. Very rarely do I take the time to read a book that is not that doesn't have sequels. So the books that I'll mention here are all going to be part of a series. But the Divine Dungeon series, which is currently 4 books and it'll finish up with 5, is far and above my favorite series I've ever come across.
Wow.
Dakota Kraut has an incredible way that he narrates the story. He brings the world to life in ways that I've really not seen in other authors at all. Like C.S. Lewis and H.G. Wells have their own style and they bring the world to life in a really cool way. But the way Dakota Kraut does it is my new favorite.
Now, wait, is he the author or the narrator of the audiobook?
The author. Okay. And then Vikas Adams is the narrator. And he is just an incredible narrator. The way I think he actually works like hand in hand with the author because you really get the feeling that it's exactly the way the author intended things to be inflected and pronounced and everything. So I love the way that Vikas Adams and Dakota Kraut work together. It's been really, really incredible. So Divine Dungeon as a whole is
awesome.
It's a sentient dungeon.
Wow.
Yes.
So many questions.
So many questions.
First of all, does it poop? First most important question.
I like that that's the first thing that comes to mind. So the dungeon, you're kind of thrust into the story in a spot that doesn't necessarily make sense right away, but you quickly find out that you're this sentient dungeon, and you're experiencing new things. You have this area of influence, and you're just this little pebble in a pool, and you experience water, and immediately your understanding of water is full and complete, and you know everything there is to know about water. And you realize that outside of the water in your puddle, there are rocks, and you learn everything there is to know about rocks, and so on. As you expand out your influence, you learn and you grow.
That's crazy.
And it's just this really, really cool take on how dungeons work, and it's one of those things that makes you want to play World of Warcraft. Like it's so cool, and gets
Dungeons and Dragons.
Or Dungeons and Dragons, and it just gets that part of you like it ticking, and it's really, really awesome. But I enjoy that aspect of it a lot. But then one of my favorite things about Dakota is that he doesn't do that thing in a series and where like the protagonist has this nearly impossible task that's never been done before in the history of the world, and it bends all the kinds of magic, and it's probably impossible. And I pulled it off. Like, that never happens.
Against all odds, a Mary Sue arises.
Yes, like people get their heads chopped off. Like, people die, and because that's how it is. But there's this fun rumor that Dakota actually rolls his books, meaning that as he's writing it, he'll roll a d20 dice to branch the story.
That's amazing. I've thought about doing that too, with a short story or something. That would be fun.
It's really cool. And so whenever, like some character that you're fond of dies, and you're like, oh no, and the Reddit goes wild, and in the Ask Me Anything, people are like, why did you kill off so and so? He's like, that's just the way the dice rolled. And literally, I think literally, and it makes me so happy. Awesome. So it's a really cool, engaging story in a really engaging world, and without getting any kind of spoilers, it's just got everything you've ever wanted in a series. Wow. So highly, highly recommended. And the audiobook is definitely the way to go. I mentioned Vikas Adams already. Really an incredible, incredible voice actor.
Yeah, you and I were talking off air about voice actors and their role in this awesome audiobook experience and how much life they bring to things.
Or don't bring to things.
These people, or don't. Yeah, you get a bad voice every now and then. You're like, oh, stop, just stop. Why? Thankfully, I've been pretty fortunate. I can only think of one book I listened to a long time ago where the guy's voice just killed it, and I just stopped.
Yep.
But for the most part, I guess because I listen to bigger books, they can afford bigger budgets.
Yep.
I just love the voices and how these guys do different voices, and just really make the experience more interesting. And I couldn't do that if I was reading this book. It wouldn't be the same.
Have you ever tried to read to your kids and use like a little like play voice or a little girl voice, and you're like, wait, how do I do that? It's weird and it's uncomfortable.
Or you do the wrong voice and you mix them up. Yeah. It's confusing.
And Stephen Fry in the Harry Potter books, voicing Hermione and just kills it. And
Harry.
How do you do that? It's incredible. Yeah. I love it.
Speaking of Harry Potter, a book that I just finished, I think last week, was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
That was a really good British accent.
I tried. It was a little bit of a little McGonagall-ish.
Little McGonagall-ish.
Harry Potter. The book was fun, although I guess I remember the movie wrong. I felt like the time travel should have been earlier. So the whole book, I was like, where is the time travel? Where is the time travel? And I'm thinking, oh, they just added the time travel for the movie. And then it popped in right at the end, and I was like, whoa, okay, there it is.
Yeah. No, and that's how it is in the movie, too. They stuck pretty true to that.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
I just remembered it wrong then. The time travel just stood out to me. I thought it was like the whole movie. I did some really interesting backstory reading on Pottermore about the Time Turner. And there's a really cool history behind it all, and how they were banned, and how some wizards overused it or messed it up and got stuck in history and messed with time itself. It was just really trippy. So yeah, if you want a fun little read, go to Pottermore and look up the Time Turner and be entertained.
I'll have to do that.
I also learned that the interpretation of time travel theory in the Harry Potter universe is the single timeline model, which means there's no multiverse, there's no branches, and you can go back and fix something, but then you've just altered where you're going to go back to. Right. Which is interesting. And on that Pottermore article, they mention there's a wizard that gets stuck back, I think, the 1400s, accidentally, and does some stuff, and then comes back to current day And voila, they just aged those 500 years that they went through, which is they die.
Yeah.
But the stuff that they did back in the past unknowingly affected their present, which they came back to. And 25 of their relatives became unborn. Isn't that a crazy like term? Unborn.
Unborn.
I love it.
That
it's just like Back to the Future. Remember his
Yeah.
siblings were becoming unborn,
Yep.
like disappearing.
that kind of freaks me out a little bit, that terminology.
It does. Yeah. You do not want to mess with stuff.
It's kind of unsettling a little bit.
Especially when you're hooking up with your mom. Don't do that if you're a time traveler.
Repeat.
That is very unsettling.
Repeat. Don't do that.
The no.
Ugh.
You don't want to be your own dad, especially if you saw the movie Predestination. Wow. Okay, moving on. The Patronus makes its premiere, I believe, in this book, and it's kind of one of those convenient plot points that sort of just comes out and saves the day. So, Daniel, if you had a Patronus, what would your animal be?
That's a really good question. I feel like people can change their Patronus because Snape changed his Patronus.
What? He did?
What? Well, he chose the doe to match Lily's. Spoiler alert. Put the spoiler alert before the thing. In case you haven't read Harry Potter, I don't know.
That's a minor spoil.
Yeah, I feel like I would be some sort of big cat, like a leopard or a panther. I would go with a panther. Would be pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Man, mine, I just don't know. I have a lot of obscure animals that I just really love because they're cute and or weird. I don't know if that constitutes as being what my Patronus should or would be. But I'm definitely a dog guy. So as unepic as it would be, it might just end up being a dachshund.
A dachshund?
Not threatening.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll make my enemies laugh, and then I, best them with another spell.
That's great. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work quite as well.
Everyone bust out laughing.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that came up in this book was the absence of his father and how. Now, I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but come on, the movie's been out forever, so is the book. So I'll put this spoiler out there. He time travels, Harry does, and sees himself across a pond. Initially, he doesn't know it's himself, and he thinks it's his father. So for a little bit of the book, he thinks that his father saved him with the Patronus of the stag, the male deer. And it's interesting because when he figures out that wasn't his father, of course he's dead, but it was actually himself. I think one of the teachers says, your father was there in a sense, because what was his father's animal form that he would morph into? It was a stag. Harry Potter's father's nickname back in his day at Hogwarts was Prongs. And so in a sense, it's like his dad was there because he was inside his heart. And as cheesy as that kind of usually comes off, I thought it was quite poetic and interesting.
Yeah.
How that book deals with loss of parents and all that. So that was cool.
Yeah. I still draw issue with the fact that he would have died there, and he from the future that he wouldn't have gotten to saved himself. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, it definitely introduces some time loops.
Yeah, time loops, they mess with me a bit, for sure.
Because if he went back and saved himself, then that saved self has to go back and save the previous self. And yeah, I don't know. We're going to do a time travel episode. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're going to analyze 3 different types of time travel stories, all the problems that they present, and some very mind warping situations. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome.
Definitely going to take some homework. That's why it hasn't happened yet. And there's a funny little throwaway line in this book when they're talking about the dangers of time travel. I think it's Dumbledore. He says that, plenty of, he says that various wizards in the past have time traveled, and they have accidentally seen themselves, which led to their future self killing their past self, or their past self killing their future self in a duel.
What?
I'm thinking, I want to see that play out. That sounds crazy. But that made me think of The Prestige. You remember that movie?
Yes, that's a great movie.
Dude, what a trip. I'm not going to spoil it because some people unfortunately have not seen that incredible movie yet. But
go watch The Prestige right now.
Yeah.
Pause this episode, go watch The Prestige, come back and say thank you.
Talking about seeing yourself, that's that presents a thought experiment almost, to where you're like, what would I do? You know,
Yeah.
who is me?
Yeah, I
But
can't get around the idea of like me seeing me and being like, I need to kill me. Like that doesn't
it,
for me. But maybe your mind breaks. Maybe time travel does that, and you're not prepared for it, and
yeah.
mind explosion.
I once listened to a time travel related book quite a while ago, and they had an interesting technology that I hadn't seen before. And it was a time preservation bubble that the time travelers would have turned on around their house. So they would collect, information and records and histories. And if the time bubble turned off, that universe around them, which was a different continuity, would basically erase the objects inside their bubble.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that was kind of smart. I was like, that sort of deals with some issues that one might think of, like if history changes, the records in that book would change. But because they have it inside the time bubble, changes to history, whether that they're doing or other people are doing, their records aren't changing because they're preserved inside that time continuity bubble. Yeah, so overall, I give Harry Potter definitely this book a 5 stars. I mean, honestly, I think I'm going to give all the books 5 stars. They're just so freaking good.
They are
Um,
excellent books. Everyone except I think it's number 5, and it's the one with
oh,
Umbridge in it. Um,
interesting.
she's just the worst. The worst. She ruins
Well,
the book in and of herself, like her as a character. Can't handle it.
hmm.
Yep.
Well, I look forward to finally reading one that is not perfect. So we'll
Yes,
see.
you've got that in front of you. Just, a book and a half to go, I think. So one of my favorites that I've read recently was called Way of the Shaman. It's a 7-book series. So it took me about 3 weeks to get through all 7 books. I listen just a little bit more aggressively
Wow,
than you do.
that's a lot.
Yeah, and I've listened to this series twice, so it is one of my favorites. But the Divine Dungeon series, I've listened to at least 4 or 5 times. I've actually lost count.
Sheesh.
It's that engaging where you want to go back. But Way of the Shaman's a really cool one. It was my first experience in the like complete digital immersion type story. So where the character gets into this quote unquote immersion pod, and they are either fully digitized into the digital world and their
Mm,
consciousness is stored electronically permanently, or they might be in there for a long haul, maybe in like the 6 months or 3 months time frame, where they're completely
mm,
in game. The in-game currency is translatable to like real life money, so people like their entire careers are in game, and
yeah.
guilds are like companies where they dungeon rating and getting bonuses and everything is all like it's their livelihood. So it's kind of a
Kind of like Ready Player One, a little bit like that.
yeah, it's a really cool take on it, and I'm sure these books are something like 10 years, 15 years old now, but well,
Ooh.
the original one I'm saying, but the
Mm,
it's a really cool experience. It gets a little bit detailed and technical, so if you're listening to the audiobook, there's segments where the narrator all unabridged, so they're reading through quite literally like the character stat sheet, because that's in the book. So
mhm.
every once in a while you kind of tune out, because I don't really care what his strength and intelligence and health is at right now.
Right.
Like it's okay. But it
Yeah.
was a really
I'm
great.
good.
Yeah, it was a really cool series still. And what kind of set it apart a bit was that it's got this layer of conspiracy to it that adds
That's fun.
not like thriller, but like just it puts everything on edge slightly. Additionally, it's actually written in Russian, so it's all
Cool.
translated. So some of the things, every once in a while, there's a translation that you're like, that didn't quite come over the way he meant it. But it's still a really really cool, really well written series. And I got livid, hot, mad, like me myself, red faced, mad at a certain betrayal in the series. Like it draws you in that much, and you care you
Jeez.
like. And I'm that type of
Calm
person
down.
where I'm fully immersed in a story. So when I'm in there, I am the main character. And this betrayal, like man, it really got me going. So.
You're like taking it out on your wife. Like she's like, "Why are you so angry at me?" Like, you don't
because
understand.
because of what that
Look.
happened. It's so good though. So I definitely recommend that one. Just it draws you in, and it's definitely an immersive experience. So it's a worthwhile adventure.
Without spoiling it, what can you say about the general story synopsis? Like, what is happening, or what's the setup?
So it starts off with Daniel Mayen. He gets commissioned for this hacking job in real life, and it turns out that the chick that hired him wasn't authorized to hire him, and so he gets sent to prison in game. So they don't do prisons anymore. They put them in long-term immersion cells for years and make them work in game in the mines. Jeez. Like literally mining ore is what they do as prisoners.
Oh my gosh.
So that's kind of where it all starts. And he gets thrown into this game and he's working through earning off his debt and just his character development and some of the things that happen in the mine. And so you get addicted to the game because you're addicted to leveling up. It's kind of add that to the level of conspiracy. Just let that sprinkle out there.
Chemical dependency.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot about him working. That first book is a lot about getting out of prison and working off that debt. And whenever he gets kind of into the main game world, he's still working through paying off his total debt to society and some of the stigmas that come along with being a prisoner in a free world. So it kind of touches on some bigger like issues in life. Because he can't get the same types of quests and jobs that other people can get because he's a prisoner.
Oh.
So it's like, hey, that's kind of like real life.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely an interesting read from start to finish. One of my favorite series for sure.
Great. I can't wait to check out all these books you've been reading. I want to read them. I want to read them now.
Yeah. Well, it'll take you about a year or two, I think.
Yeah, my rate for sure.
Yep.
Man, you're a speed listener. I listened to the second Harry Potter book in one day, and that's my best record so far.
That's really good. So I had this one weekend. I listened to 4 books.
Oh my gosh!
And they were all
that's incredible.
Yeah, they were all in a 10 to 12 hour book like time range. And my wife was out of town. Is how I got that to happen. But I mean, literally. All of my waking hours, I was listening nonstop at 2x speed, just tearing through these books. And that was the start of the true addiction to audiobooks for me, and where I started maxing out my library cards at multiple libraries.
It's pretty soon you're going to get an FBI call like, sir, we noticed some suspicious activity in your library card, sir.
Which one?
For some questioning. Yeah, which one? Uh-oh. Don't say that. Like, we noticed you're listening to a Russian book, sir. You have any connection with Russia, sir?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All right. Now, my next book that I finished, I think about 2 weeks ago was Mortal Engines, the first book by Philip Reeve.
Great series.
That was, talk about fast listening. That book's only 9 hours long.
It's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, it took me 6 hours to finish it. I don't like 2X. I've done it a few times, but I feel like I lose a little bit of the experience and the detail. Mm-hmm. So I listen to most books at 1.5 and sometimes 1.75 if I can handle it.
Yeah. Most of the time I end up in that 2X speed, but I found that older books, the narrators talk faster. Or maybe it's just their language is so much more like verbose, like you can't just you can't ingest it because it uses more complicated words, and you actually have to analyze what they're saying to understand the meaning. I can't listen to you mentioned what is it, Asimov? Is that his name? Isaac? Mm-hmm. I can't listen to his books at 2x speed because I have to slow it down a little bit. Same with C.S. Lewis. I have to slow it down because there's so much going on.
That's funny.
So much language to sift through.
Yeah, I did listen to books at 2x for a while, maybe for a month or two, and I totally got adjusted to it. And then I was like, you know what does 1x sound? I've never listened to books at 1x. Oh my gosh, it was like super slow-mo.
It is.
It's so trippy. I'm like, this cannot be normal speed. Like, I'm used to 2x, so my relative, whatever is adjusted, but all right, so Mortal Engines was a really fun read, and it was super action-packed. Now, this is after the movie came out. I haven't seen the movie. I still haven't seen it.
Nor I.
I really want to. Maybe I'll do an episode on that. It'd be fun. But, super action-packed, very almost rushed, but I kind of like, it's excusable. I don't know why. I could tell things were literally just going, not stopping or slowing down, but I wasn't annoyed by it. Like, I have read some rushed books. where I just feel like the author was maybe not very well developed. But
Hmm.
that wasn't the case with this book for some reason. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I like the steampunk theme. I haven't really read any steampunk books, but there's kind of a steampunk or diesel punk vibe to this book for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely technology that is, on the edge of physics. And there's a lot of things I can say about their technology. I mean, an entire city is on wheels, just rushing around the landscape and eating up other cities. Yeah, so
I would really like to
it
see the
just,
movie. After I've read the book now, I really want to see the movie.
yeah.
Like, how does a city eat a city? Like, I've got it in my imagination where it's a little bit too flexible. Like, it's not metal. Like, it's a mouth of a city opening. You know what I like? It's not right. I know, but it's what's in my head. So I want to see how they got it in picture. You know?
But in this universe, it is quite a few hundred years after mankind has basically desolated the earth with nuclear warfare. And so we see a collapse, but then mankind, as always, survives somehow. And the way they survive is by making their cities portable so they can scavenge for the resources that are scarce on the earth, including other cities,
Yep.
and enslaving or employing or just consuming, whatever and whoever they find out there on the plains and other cities. So very different. There's no other books like this. I think I can say that with a clear conscience. It's
Yeah.
definitely a unique take on
Absolute
everything.
certainty on that one. It's definitely a unique series. It was dark, and I wasn't ready for it to be dark, and so it was a little bit unsettling at first when I wasn't ready for it. But after I kind of embraced the themes in the book, it was really cool and really engaging. So I'm right there with you. It's an awesome series.
And there's some other fun themes of technology, ancient technology being found, which is really to us modern day 2019. That's like future technology. Won't spoil it, but that they find something that is very useful for for their agenda. But like it's 2,000 years in the future, but they find something that's 1,000 years old. That's fun because there's still an element of mystery and fiction to it. But there's a feeling of antiquity and ancientness. It's weird at the same time. It's like future and ancient.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a cool dynamic, and I
mhm.
like in there too where they don't have like normal things like for us cell phones, and they actually dig those up in one of the books, and they they were like talking about a cell phone as if it was like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that's not what that was used for. They're holding this device, they don't know what it is. They're like people used to talk on that, like they could communicate, and they're like, no, that can't happen.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So funny. It reminds me of a book I read a while back, A Canticle for Leibowitz, which similarly takes place in the far, far future after nuclear holocaust and everything. And these religious zealots, they're basically just monks, are piecing together leftovers of technological remains in terms of blueprints and things like that. And they don't know what these blueprints are for. They're circuitry schematics, but they don't know that. And they believe that it's their duty given by God to preserve whatever information they can find. So they're literally gold leafing these circuit board layouts on the paper. Like they're scribing, they copy Bibles and they add all the like decoration and stuff. They're doing that to circuit board layouts. And it is so funny. It's not a comedy book. Um,
That's
but
great.
it's just like, what if, like I could see this happening in 2,000 years when people don't know what a circuit board is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, fun little ancient slash future little theme there that we were talking about. There's a little bit of Frankenstein stuff going on in this book too. There's some resurrection of dead people by means
No
of
joke.
strange and nebulous technology, which is fun and very creepy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'll just not spoil myself even with a trailer, and I'm just gonna go see the movie. It's probably on Redbox by now,
Gotta be.
so I need to watch it.
Awesome. So another one I was really, really into is called Spells, Swords, and Stealth. And if you're paying attention, all of my books right now are lit RPG
I see that.
because I'm a nerd.
Explain that to us. That's a new term to me. I don't really have my brain wrapped around it. What does that mean?
Okay, so your lit RPG, and it might be a bigger concept than this, but when you're like if you took an RPG and brought it into the book world where you're literally your character building. Like a lot of times there's specific references to stats. Like I mentioned, the Way of the Shaman, it like literally read out his stats. That's not necessarily every lit RPG, but that's the idea where that you're literally a character in a story and you're gaining skills and learning new spells, and you're going through the story as kind of a protagonist. So Spells, Swords, and Stealth has a really cool premise where it's the NPCs. There are adventurers in the story. Like there are characters, there are people literally playing a D&D game, a tabletop D&D game, and the story starts there, and then it follows their characters from, the real people into the game, and so now you're in the game with their characters.
That's meta.
It's really cool.
Really meta.
And so then you come into the story with these NPCs, and
which are non-player characters. Right?
Yes. For those that might not know, yep, non-playable characters. So from the perspective of the NPCs that inadvertently become adventurers. And it is just so cool after that. Everything that like somebody who has seen adventurers and they hate adventurers because the adventurers are all like completely irreverent and uncaring.
Yeah, like tourists.
Yeah, but worse because they have no they don't value life at all. Like for an NPC, like what happens after you log out of your game? The NPC still got to raise their kid that doesn't age, and they still have to keep the fire going and the beds made and all that. So there's like this whole world that happens outside of your little game, right? And so they really kind of despise adventurers. But then they become adventurers themselves and walk through that journey, but they never lose their roots of being NPCs, of course. One thing about all of my books is they have this element of humor, particularly the Spells, Swords, and Stealth and Divine Dungeon. The authors are intentionally humorous with their writing, and it makes for a really, really good read.
Now, I was going through your Goodreads account, and it was really interesting seeing the waves of genres you go through. So first, there's all this like high fantasy, well, not high fantasy, but I think it's lit RPG stuff.
Yep.
And then I was going back, and I saw a wave of Star Wars. I saw your Lord of the Rings stuff. You had a Sherlock Holmes wave.
Yep.
What other spots? What other phases am I missing? It was just really interesting seeing them happen in front of me.
So there was, well. You have to take
it's because you like series. I guess that's what it is.
I am very series driven, and though it doesn't follow my Goodreads exactly because I was inputting those kind of as I remembered them, but in real life it kind of happened that same way where I would read the entire New Jedi Order Star Wars series and the entire Chronicles of Narnia series and the entire Harry Potter series. But yeah, I'm trying to think of some other ones that were on my Goodreads that I've gotten on there. I can't think of any right now.
I'm trying to find time to update my Goodreads because currently, as mentioned in previous episodes, which Nate loves to laugh at me for, I have a spreadsheet with all my books in it.
Yeah.
I didn't know about Goodreads until like recently. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, I've been doing this spreadsheet for like 3 years. I don't know if I want to move over to Goodreads.
If only there was a tool that somebody made.
Well, there is an import feature, but Goodreads won't accept my spreadsheet unless I have the stupid ISBN numbers for every single book. And I'm not going to go look those up. That's dumb.
But, I mean, honestly, Daniel, it's your fault for not getting those in the first place.
I should have made Goodreads. I should have made the website myself and been rich.
Incredible.
Yeah, I've got 86 entries on my spreadsheet of books I've listened to and read. And this is going back probably 5 years or more.
Nice. That's awesome.
I pulled in a few that I read in high school, like Foundation series that I loved. Have you read The Positronic Man by Isaac Asimov?
I haven't. So I just discovered Isaac, literally this week.
Wow.
So the Foundation series, I just started it yesterday, and I'm about 3 hours in.
That was my first sci-fi novel I read through is that, and I still love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm definitely going to enjoy it. I feel like over the long haul. I don't have enough time in it to form an opinion yet, but it's pretty awesome so far.
Yeah. Are you doing the original trilogy, or are you starting with A Prelude to Foundation, which was written in the 80s?
I am a believer in reading any trilogy or watching any movie in the order in which they were released to the public.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm doing the first trilogy first, and then I'll
Okay.
go back and see the prequels and sequels.
Yeah, I agree with you with the release order, but in this case, I mean, I read it in chronological order, so Prelude to Foundation and those the prequel trilogy, which was written later, and then the original trilogy after. I liked it because it just kind of flowed. But yeah, I can't wait to hear your response as you finish each of these because Foundation is one of my like first loves in sci-fi.
Yes,
And
awesome.
when people ask me for my favorite, it's always Foundation first. The whole Foundation universe, I just love it. So, okay, the next audiobook that I finished recently was Binti by, actually, I'm going to ruin this name because it's an African name. Nnedi Okorafor. I'm sorry, Africa.
I love that phonetic pronunciation. That's beautiful.
Nnedi. There's two N's, Nnedi and Okorafor. So there's that. Yeah, so I saw this book, hyped a lot by my library app, and the cover art was really intriguing. It was an African girl with like tribal paint on her face, and she looked very exotic. The art was really good, and the name was just Binti. It says its character's name. The name of the book as well is Binti. I'm thinking, what is this book? And the synopsis was basically saying that this girl is the first of her tribe in Africa to go into space. I'm thinking, hey, this is great. We're getting some other ethnicities being represented in sci-fi, and this story is representation of this tribe of Africa going into space for the first time. I was really intrigued, and I was very hopeful for it. And then I started listening, and I was like, I don't know about this. Didn't quite deliver what I expected. It's less of a sci-fi. It's more of a story about a girl doing things and in a sci-fi setting. Like she travels across space, but do they mention the takeoff or what they do in the months, in space travel and then frozen and then landing? No, none of the sci-fi things are in the story. It's just very quick touch points of her having a relationship with people with names. And this object she conveniently has is just like the savior of everything. It's just weird.
So this is not one of your new favorite
It's not a good
books.
one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I'm gathering that. I just
guess
wanted to clarify.
Mhm. I'm very lucky. I almost only listen to books that turn out to be great. Like
Yeah.
very few of my books on my chart get anything below a 3-star. And even very few of them get 3 stars. This is definitely a 2 or a 3
Eesh.
because it wasn't badly written, but it could have been so much better. And I don't know, it was just really lacking a lot of common sense things that should have been explained
Mhm.
or that could have had great subplots or stories or whatever. Just like, wow, you really missed some big stuff there.
I wonder though. So it misses some of the like technical explanations and additional like in-depth sci-fi things
Mhm.
that we're used to, but I wonder if it's a good entry into the sci-fi world that doesn't dive too much into it, but just introduces the reader
Yeah.
into that kind of extra thinking outside of the norms. An entry-level sci-fi, perhaps.
Yeah, I could see that. And this would be good for like, a teenager that's not too in on the sci-fi thing, perhaps.
Yeah.
So it could be that. That's a good point.
I'm
Not everything has to be Isaac Asimov.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
I'm forever
Okay.
an optimist, so just bear with me.
I'll forgive you. So yeah, I finished that. And I feel like the ethnicity thing is something that's worth more discussion. And I feel like this generation is just getting so woke, if you will, about different things. Namely representation of gender and ethnicity in entertainment, just in general. We finally got a woman-led superhero movie with Marvel, with Captain Marvel by Marvel. We finally got Black Panther. It's just like about freaking time. Like, come on, world! It's 2019.
Yep.
Where are these things? Are there any Asian superheroes? I can't think of any.
Oh man.
Like if I were an Asian kid living in America, I may not think about it because it's what I would have been raised with, but I may think of this. I may think, where are the superheroes that look like me?
Yeah.
And I love that we discussed this in the last episode with the Battle Angel Alita episode with Paulina, and how great it is that we're getting great female leads in movies. and girls can grow up with, characters that are girls and they can relate to them. And African American kids are growing up with characters that they can more easily relate to just without any extra thought, involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's great. So I'm excited to see more, ethnicities and people groups and cultures being making their way into mainstream sci-fi and fantasy. All right, next book I listened to was Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh boy.
Do you have any experience with this guy, Daniel? Ever heard of him?
It doesn't ring a bell.
It's an old one. This book has actually been required reading in some places for some years in the past at public school.
Okay.
And some states didn't like it because there is some reference to sex and some violent stuff in here. But it's a really interesting book because this character who survives this horrific war incident in World War II, he survives and he goes on to live his life, going back to America and things like that. And he ends up getting unstuck in time.
Whoa.
Which is really weird. So we are on, a single path of time, right? So we think we're stuck in time. We're stuck on the path of time flowing in one direction. Well, this guy gets unstuck and he walks through a doorway one day while eating lunch, and he turns out to be back in World War II all of a sudden, reliving things that he dealt with in the past. And then a bomb hits and he wakes up in, future. And then he wakes up in midlife. And then he experiences his birth. It's just like a trip.
That's something
it's really
else.
Cool.
That sounds like a fun book.
It is. He can't control it. He doesn't know why. You really don't know why it happens to him. And now there's aliens involved because they want to know what's up with this human that's unstuck in time. So yeah, it's really different. And it really challenges your thoughts of time. Like one of the things that they present in the story is, let's say someone's dead, right? Well, the aliens who are so woke, they're so fifth dimension woke that they're like, well, that person's not gone. They're still there, just in other times.
Wow.
It's just the current state right now of that body is really unfortunate, is what they say. but they're alive and well in all previous moments of time. They're totally fine in the past. It's really funny. Yeah, so that's cool. It's a great war history kind of story, as well as a weird mind-bending time travel flick that just really takes you for a ride. And the aliens are ludicrous. Like they look like a plunger with a glove on top and an eyeball in the middle of the hand, and they're green.
That's great.
So this is probably not selling you on the book. But I feel like the author just wanted to make these aliens as preposterous as possible.
Yep.
Just because he could.
Absolutely.
And he does a good job. So yeah, these aliens are really something else because they can see all time. They know the end of the universe and yeah, everything in between. And it's interesting because it kind of leaves you wondering, is this really just his PTSD? Is he mentally ill or is it really, really happening?
Yeah.
And that comes up in the story too, because this guy survives a plane wreck and his children are like, you never mentioned time travel until after the plane wreck. And he's like, well, I just didn't feel like it was right. It was the right time to mention it and bring it up. It leaves you wondering like, ooh,
I like that.
Multiple interpretations.
It's like a brain teaser. I like it.
It really is. Yeah. So that's a very unique book. I encourage you to read it, although there is some a few adult scenes in there. Although this book was written like in the 60s, so it's not as graphic as what you might expect today. But it's no Altered Carbon.
It's no Altered Carbon. That series, Oof. My gosh, really cool book, really cool premise. Really
sexual.
Did not need so much sex. It was rough.
Yeah. All right, and my last book is absolutely hilarious. I could not stop listening to this book. It is The Disaster Artist. Now, if you guys keep up with movies, you may say, hey, that's a movie about a movie. And you're right. So the book came out first. So The Room, okay? The Room was one of the worst modern movies made of all time. I think it came out in 2003. Now, the side character in the movie, his name is Mark. You may recall, oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, him.
Okay.
So that guy in The Room wrote a book about his experience knowing Tommy Wiseau, who wrote, directed, shot everything for The Room. So this book is kind of like autobiography about the dude's story, getting involved with this movie, what it was like going through the movie making experience, and then what happened afterwards. And it's just absolutely crazy. Do you know anything about The Room or Tommy Wiseau, Daniel?
I have not experienced The Room.
Look up Tommy Wiseau and you'll just go down a YouTube wormhole of just what did I just watch for 10 hours. It's just, I swear he's the most interesting and weird and unsettling character that I've ever known of in real life. This is a real guy, unfortunately.
It sounds scary.
Yeah, but the book, I haven't even seen The Room, and I haven't seen the movie The Disaster Artist, but the book The Disaster Artist is absolutely enthralling and just wild. I listened to that every single chance I could get because I had to know more about how is this guy real and how did he make a movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun.
So that was cool.
Have to give that one a shot.
One of my secret dreams is to see Tommy Wiseau like given legal permission by Marvel, by Fox, for him to do parody movies of big movies.
Yes.
Like I want to see a Tommy Wiseau Avengers. It would be the wackiest, most hilarious. It's like Robot Chicken meets Saturday Night Live meets like every B movie you've ever seen. Like if that could be combined into a blockbuster ripoff, it would be gold. I want to see that happen. I want to see Tommy like appointed as like official parody movie maker of history. And he would think he's making movies better than the originals. That's the kind of guy he is.
Oh wow.
All right, so those are books we've all listened to somewhat recently and liked, and a little bit of unlike there with one of mine. What is something you're listening to right now?
So we've touched on it slightly with the Foundation trilogy, just starting into that one. And since I've already talked about it, I won't go into it too much more. But I'm a single series kind of guy. I get the impression that you hop around a little bit.
I do. I like to go in circles.
Yeah.
Like, read the first book of a bunch of series, and then okay, now I do the second book of all those same series. Kind of like a lot of different pieces of pie.
I can't handle that. I'm like a super.
I'm a buffet.
I'm a super one-track mind kind of guy.
Okay.
So that's exactly the only thing I'm working on. But in the back of my mind, you've talked about Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, and even his entire collection looks pretty cool. So I see a lot of Brandon Sanderson in my future, which means way too many, way too long audiobooks.
Sorry. But not to you. To you, it's a 12-hour book.
That's a 12-hour book. It's nothing. It's like a day.
Totally doable.
How many waking hours are in a day? I got this. And then
goodbye family. I'm listening to books.
I try not to neglect my family. It's a struggle though. And then there's another one that's kind of piqued my interest. It's called The Land series, and it's by, and I'm gonna maybe butcher this first name, Elleron Long.
That sounds like a fantasy name right there.
It really does, right? But that's what's on Goodreads. But it has all of the books have like 16,000 5-star reviews.
Jeez. How old are they?
I don't know, and I want to go look it up.
You think it'd have a more intriguing name instead of just The Land series. It doesn't get me, but
well, okay. So
I guess I'm wrong.
And now I've pulled it up on Goodreads. It's The Land Founding. It's the Chaos Seeds series. That's a cooler name.
That sounds pretty
It's a little bit
right
more
there.
cooler.
Chaos Seeds.
Definitely looking forward to digging into that in the future.
I am right now, still today, listening to Ball Lightning by a name I'm gonna butcher. There's a lot of butchering of names here. This is a foreign name. It's a Chinese author, Zixin Liu. I don't know. Cixin and then Liu. This book is all about exploring the natural or perhaps not natural phenomena of ball lightning. Are you familiar with that phenomena? You heard about those theories and whatnot?
I've not heard of ball lightning, no.
I guess this author has like an obsession with this and did way too much research, and they're like, I'm going to write a book about this. And it's really cool, actually. If you like military weaponization stories, if you like phenomena being explained through scientific means, if you like other cultures, specifically Chinese military, if that's just your thing, you'll love this book.
If you are really into Chinese military culture, you're going to dig this book.
Yeah, a very niche, but a niche nonetheless.
A subsect of a subsect of a subsected subsect group.
Yeah, all those lightning fanatics out there are just gonna love this. Oh my gosh, I listened to one of those most funny podcast episodes I've ever listened to. It was on the How Did This Get Made podcast with Seth Rogen was the special guest on the episode, and they basically do movie reviews or movie roasting sessions, literally saying how the heck did this movie get made, and they were doing Van Helsing. Oh, so good. And so one of the hilarious things that I'm totally going to steal from their show outline was they read 5-star reviews for these god awful movies. And one of the 5-star reviews they found online was the person said, "This movie has the best lightning of all movies." And this person goes on just like waxing poetic about lightning and how beautiful the lightning scenes and the storms are in this movie. We're like, who the heck cares about lightning in a movie? Like, is this a thing?
Season U.
So
he really
he's into
lightning.
That. He's on those dark web forums about lightning. I don't know. I'm not gonna go there. But boy, was that a funny episode. Oh, I was laughing. So yeah, this basically talks about this character whose parents are killed by ball lightning, and he grows up with this interest and this dedication to discover what is this ball lightning phenomena, and he ends up working with some military contracts and weaponization, and it gets really cool. And I mean, I'm not done with it. I'm like maybe, I don't know, 3/4 through, and just like every few chapters, they get deeper into what the ball lightning is. And it's just more and more mind just whoa.
Nice.
I can't say anything else because I want it to be as much of a surprise to you as it was to me. And I love it. I love physics and science, so this was really, really fun to read for me. And I've learned a lot actually from it.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm noticing that I'm adding a lot of books to my want to read list after chatting through some of this.
Same with me. It's growing to an uncontrollable size. The next book that I'm reading through, or rather waiting for it to come back to me, I'm just going to try to find it on Hoopla now, but it's The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And this is the first book of his Stormlight Archives. So Mistborn is the first of a different trilogy by the same author. And from what I've picked up on rumors is Brandon Sanderson really likes connected universes amongst his books. And I love that. Kind of like the Marvel MCU, ties in all this stuff.
That's awesome.
I love that bigger storytelling where like you read, 5 great stories and then the 6th story is like, oh, they're all connected. That's awesome to me.
Absolutely.
The Foundation series, that will happen later on down the road, and it's incredible. But so this is one of those where Brandon Sanderson has some mysterious and, kind of shadowy connections between all his trilogies, or at least maybe 2 or 3 of the trilogies. And The Way of Kings is just a great, solid fantasy. I mean, it's got magic, it's got ancient weapons, it's got like different cultures, very Lord of the Rings. I mean, the depth of his world is equitable to Lord of the Rings.
That's impressive.
World building.
That's awesome.
It really is. There's different nations, there's different cultures, people have different traits, and it's not just like elves and dwarves and humans. It's like way more deep. There's much more different factions of humans. And it's totally believable. There's different tendencies. And I don't know, it's a really beautiful world building experience reading the book. And the character is great. There's a little bit, it was hard to follow at first because it's one of those books that jumps around in time for a little bit.
Yep.
And then it settles down. And I didn't like that, honestly. I don't like using my brain so much to where I can't follow. And it's like, I can't just turn off my brain and just enjoy it for what it is. I'm still trying to figure it out subconsciously. But this one jumps quite a bit in the scales of thousands of years at one point. And I'm just like, whoa, I need a timeline. I need a timeline and a flowchart. Please, somebody help me.
You got to get your chalkboard out and start sketching.
Crazy wall with a red string connecting things.
That's awesome.
Anyway, it's a really great fantasy story, and I can't wait to finish it. I can't wait to get it back and move on with the series because it's beautiful. And lastly, I'm kind of sort of listening through an anthology of a number of sci-fi short stories. And some of them are really great. Some of them are, kind of like meh. It didn't really get me. But there was a really great one I just read through that I want to look up that author because I want to see what else this beautiful mind has thought of. But yeah, it's called New Space Opera by Gardner Dozois, and I guess that's the person who compiled these stories together because there's different authors for each story.
Okay.
And those are kind of fun. It's sort of a nice break from like the long sci-fi that I listen to most often. Each story might be an hour long.
Wow.
And there's downsides to it because you don't get as invested into a character or the world.
Sure.
But at the same time, you kind of get to the point of big plot points and ideas, and the more exciting things sometimes.
Yeah.
So
now, I'm not sure that I've ever
man.
read through or listened through an anthology before. Are all
Very
of
interesting.
these short stories kind of interconnected, and it's really one story?
not at all.
Okay.
There is a general theme of space opera-ness. That's it.
Okay.
The name of the anthology is New Space Opera. So this is kind of space opera, but not from the 50s. This is like new.
Oh, wow.
Hence the name. Hence the name New Space Opera.
Like the new Super Mario Bros.
I guess. But yeah, it's kind of hit and miss, but still fun to read through some short stories without investing, 20 hours.
Yeah. Fantastic.
A single one.
Everyone needs one of those once in a while.
Well, I think this brings episode 2 a close. Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing all these amazingly epic books you finished and for devoting all of your life to reading books for this podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
We really need to work on monetizing this hobby of ours and like get paid to do book reviews.
I think it's a viable path. I think we need to do it.
I mean, who else can read 4 books in a day but you? So
it's unheard of.
You need to get on that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again. And looking forward to having you back on the podcast in the near future.
Hey, absolutely.
If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week. It's so weird. It's such a weird experience listening to anything at 1x now, including podcasts. I listen at 1.5 for almost pretty much everything.
Oh, absolutely.
At least.
It's trippy going back to 1 speed.
Yeah. Being normal. Those normal people out there. Ugh.